Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to a new installment of Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. In these episodes, I speak with the people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes. Welcome to today's fireside chat with today's guest, Ali Kraus, CFE. Ali is Chief Marketing Officer at Benetrends Financial, where she leads brand strategy, marketing, and growth initiatives for one of franchise industry's most trusted funding partners. She also serves as Vice Chair of the International Franchise Association's Women's Franchise Committee, championing empowerment and leadership for women across franchising. Ali's the co-founder of Furry Frans, a nonprofit bringing comfort to children in crisis, and is passionate about building community, creating impact, and helping entrepreneurs turn their dreams into reality. Welcome to Voices Behind the Build, Ali.
Thank you, Curtis. I love that you added my little CFE onto my title there. It's a very special franchise accreditation I'm very proud of.
So official and important. I have to hear more about Furry Frans. We're foster parents and we're really big on creating community. Tell me a little bit more about what that is. I'm really curious.
Yeah, this was the first time I actually got to hear someone introduce me with that because it's brand new. I too fostered for a long time, but the funny piece of Furry Friends is it's actually referencing stuffed animals. But we called it furry instead of stuffy, as my 5-year-old would say, because we wanted to make sure when building the nonprofit that we could expand it maybe into the fostering world or into real animals. But for now, it's a brand new, officially registered nonprofit, specifically in the franchising space, to bring comfort to children in crisis. Myself and Chris Stewart, who is over at Bloom and Blinds franchise, came together and created this. We both have a really big passion for nonprofits and giving back to communities, and we saw an opportunity to support and do something great in franchising. So we're launching our very first inaugural event September 16th in Washington, D.C. at the IFA's advocacy event. But we have lots of events coming this year. You can find them all on furryfrans.com. But essentially what the nonprofit does is we team up with local events, whether that be large franchise events or smaller WFN, FBN events, and people bring a stuffed animal, new or gently loved, to donate to fire, EMS, and police stations all across the country, because frequently those first responders actually have stuffed animals under their seat and they give them to children in moments of crisis.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's really easy to participate because and that's what I love about it is a single person can bring one stuffed animal that they stole from their child or bought at the airport in their suitcase to an event. But companies can also do much larger sponsorships and support the nonprofit from that way. We can ship multiple bundles of them. The wonderful Women in Franchise Committee sent me almost 200 of them vacuum sucked in the mail as a surprise. So Lots of ways to get involved, but it's a brand new thing and I do it in my free time as if I have any of that, but really special to both Chris and I, and we're excited to bring it to the franchise world. So I appreciate that.
That's really neat. Congratulations on doing that. As you describe it, I'm just trying to think if any of my daughters have gently loved any of their stuffies.
Yeah, gently loved is a funny word we say very slowly because that means it like has a tag and no stains. So we probably have to work out the kinks on that one a little because your version of gently loved might be different than mine or the next person. But I always laugh because I got suckered into bringing a new one home to my daughter from every franchise event I go to. And that was totally not the point when I first asked her if I could travel with one of her stuffies and take photos across the US with it. But, she sucked me in and I buy a new one at every airport I go to. So I'm going to try to stop doing that and give back to Furry Frans.
Listen, I mean, it beats the shot glass, right? Story that everybody buys at all the airports that they're in. So, at least that's an improvement. So you have a lot of really interesting and diverse experiences, right? I feel like you're the kind of person who does it all. Today, you're here to talk with me about culture, people, the workplace. How have some of these past experiences that you have had shaped you as a people person, right? What are some of the lessons about people, about relationships, about human relationships that you, excuse me, that you've gained, during maybe your time as an educator or even with the Ravens?
Yeah, I think going back to being an educator is really the start of it all. Is that I was a autism teacher before going into marketing and franchising, and at the end of the day, it's all about people. And I think the more I've changed my careers, it's less about the day to day of marketing and more about my team. And I think I just realized quickly that I love it. Like we have a wonderful HR department at Benetrends and with the Ravens and the front offices of other jobs I've been with, but when it comes down to it, I've always found myself very deeply ingrained with the people of not just my team, but my company. And I think it's just because I find joy in it. And I think people with a lot of energy who like to do things, especially in a digital world, is where that stems from. So I find myself just being a person that inserts themselves into supporting with culture and workplace fun, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's such the classic tale of if you don't love what you're doing, why are you doing it? And so I think more people need to contribute to that, which is partially where the passion comes from. That if I can contribute to positive workplace culture and doing exciting, fun things that keep our team energized and ready to show up in their home offices to work every day, then I'm doing something right, because I can also pass it down to the next person that maybe didn't know that they could step in or insert themselves and support in a way that doesn't just mean you're part of an HR organization. So
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's just going to be the people with passion that insert themselves to those opportunities to build everything from networking to engagement to what it is at your company. And that looks very different in an office versus online digitally. So it's something we're all still navigating 5 years
Yeah.
later after the word I refuse to say on this call. So that's where it is for me. It just goes back to how much I enjoy it, and it's not a made up passion. It's
Yeah.
more genuine than I can explain.
And it's, all of these different stops that you've made, it's not really even reinventing yourself. It's just taking that next step right into, a new challenge and growth. And I think that that's super cool, all those different things that you've done. And you bring all that experience into this role that you have now, right? You're chief marketing officer at Benetrends. And so we have to tell everybody, what is Benetrends?
Yeah, so Benetrends has been around for about 43 years now, definitely not new to the franchising space. Our founder, about 43 years ago, his name is Len Fisher, still the chairman of our board, actually created what's known today as Rollover as Business Startups, also shortened to ROBS. Len was an ERISA attorney and worked directly with the IRS to create ROBS funding, which is a funding strategy that allows you to take your 401k and roll that over to be able to use that tax deferred, penalty free for your business. So, really unique funding strategy that a lot of other companies other than Benetrends can do today. But we very much pride ourselves on being the first and the largest to do it. And we fund thousands of brands. We funded more than 40,000 entrepreneurs in the
Wow.
US now. But we also do plenty of other funding options like SBA lending, business plan writing, and that sort of thing. But our bread and butter and our history really goes back to what a ROBS plan is. And so it's a really special and very unique product that we get to share not only with the franchise world, but with the business world as an opportunity to use funds that you maybe didn't even know you had available
Yeah.
to you to become an entrepreneur.
How how much of the business is really dedicated to franchising and how much is outside of the world of franchising?
For us, I would probably say about 90% of what we do is the franchise world, maybe
Mhm.
10% not, but we fund some really fascinating businesses. We've seen a lot of RV camps come in. Trying to think of some other fun ones, really unique. A lot of restaurant concepts, of course. Sometimes even franchisors are actually looking to get the capital they need to launch their franchise business. So that's something that we could fund as well. But definitely mostly heavily in the franchise space. That's
So
where
this
our
is
relationships are.
this is good. This kind of leads me to that question I have. I'm really curious to hear about the kinds of clients that you work with, the kinds of people who might come to Benetrends, and why do they come to Benetrends versus some alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, they're franchisees for the most part, and most of
Okay.
our relationships lie not with the end client or the end user here, in which case it is the entrepreneur. That person becomes a client for the rest of their business life, as we say, once they enter into our operational team or our pension side of our business. But for the most part, a majority of the actual what you could call a client that we work with is directly the franchisor and then the
Hmm.
franchise consultants and brokers. So most of our business is broker driven. So brokers need to get their candidates funded and they come to Benetrends because of a relationship they have. So from where I stand in marketing and working alongside Michael Minatelli of our sales team here at Benetrends, most of our heavy interactions are really broker, franchisor, and that consultant world of business.
Got it. Got it. And then for the 401k side, it's with the individuals, I would imagine,
Yeah,
that
those would
you're.
be the entrepreneurs. So once they move their retirement plan over and they're working with Benetrends, Benetrends is doing everything from their tax forms, which is called a Form 5500 every year for that business. We're supporting with any type of audit or questions that you have on your retirement plan. And then we actually help with the termination of your plan as well. So that's when you get ready to sell your business or retire or move on from the business that you bought into. So those are all services that come along with the relationship as well.
Awesome. So back to you. How did you end up at Benetrends? Or even before that, how did you end up in the world of like franchising, right? You're so passionate and knowledgeable about the franchise space. I'm kind of curious about how you ended up here. What's the story?
So I used to make the joke that I ended up here by accident, but I recently learned that's not funny because everyone says that. And up until only recently, you couldn't really go to school for franchising or get education in the franchise space. So everybody ended up here by accident, whether it was their family owned a franchise or someone told them about it or LinkedIn came into play because that's how we all get jobs now.
Right.
But really, I was working as an autism teacher for a long time. I was in Baltimore County Public Schools, and it wasn't doing it for me. I loved the kids, but the system was burning me, and I had this passion for growth. And I also learned that I loved to work with the communities and the education side of things, of involving parents. And I was doing everything from IEP team meetings to talking to lawyers at 21 years old. Lord knows how I figured that out as a young kid in the workplace. But I stumbled upon the CEO of what's called Celebrity School, which is an emerging franchise in the education space. I met the CEO, Richie Huffman, and I showed up in his office one day. I sat at his seat at the board table because I didn't know any better. And the two of us ended up talking for almost 3 hours. And born from that conversation, I quit teaching, which was really hard because I absolutely felt like a failure, which is a conversation for another day, that I was switching careers 7 years in. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Richie and I just clicked. We had all these amazing ideas together, and I became his director of events and was very fortunate to go through a full company rebrand after he had been in business for 26 years. So I was very deeply immersed in marketing and with the marketing team at the time who got to help support the franchise business, which was launching just about a year after I started. So really learned everything, got my CFE from Celebrity School, and then I ended up at Entrepreneur Magazine for a while and went to the supplier side and got a taste of digital marketing with my good friend Leanne Caruso. And then I ended up at Benetrends about 3.5 years ago. And I heard a statistic one time that 80% of women never enter the C suite because they are financially illiterate.
Hmm.
And that rocked me, especially as somebody who was on the women's franchise committee. I thought, where is the gap? Where are we missing the opportunity to learn financing and grow financing? And for me, I didn't know a whole lot about Benetrends, but I thought, man, this is my next opportunity to do something great in marketing for a company that's been around a really long time. But also, I knew that I would learn a lot. And I think that's
Yeah.
important in a company, is that you're also getting what you're putting in. And that was a huge opportunity for me, and I am so grateful I did, because I still am not an expert in funding. I will not go deeper into Rob's than I already have on this call. I'm dangerous enough now that I understand what options are out there and how we can support franchises from a funding perspective.
I love that you said first of all, I love that you said that you found franchising by accident, but that everybody says that. And it's true. I mean, I I often tell people that if I had to do, knowing now what I know about franchising, and as we've gotten deeper into that space, knowing what I know now, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would start there because it's an amazing place, it's an amazing community, and everybody just uplifts everybody else, right? You're swimming in opportunity, and you're surrounded by people who will speak your name in a crowded room of opportunity. And that is what's so special about the world of franchising to me, that you just don't find in other places.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think one of the great things that's helped shaping the opportunity to get that lack of education in franchising is everything the IFA is doing with that CFE program. We jumped to the call with me being so proud of my CFE designation. But they actually require you to go through educational training with some of the universities that support that. So the Yum Center brand, if anyone listening knows Kathy Gosser, she's incredible. She's at University of Louisville, and I went through this 6-week program with them to support my CFE, and just learned so much about franchising in 6 weeks that is how I killed my time during the layoffs. Again, during the word I say on this call. So there's a lot of educational resources out there that probably wouldn't have been when I originally went into the workforce at 21 years old. So very, very grateful with all the work the IFA is doing with Titus Center of Franchising, University of Louisville, and so on. That is just supporting people from all realms of franchising now.
So, as a CMO, what does your role look like, particularly when it comes to people dynamics, right? You have to lead, collaborate with, and build relationships with a lot of people in your organization.
Yeah, totally. And I think I started to touch on this a little bit ago that we have a wonderful HR team here at Benetrends, but ever since I came here, I think Benetrends was historically an in-person job before the pandemic hit. And it was for many, many years a very tight-knit group of people in a small little area called Lansdale, Pennsylvania. And so everybody had this fantastic workplace culture where they did barbecue days and ice cream days and potlucks, and they had a whole fun crew internally where they had a lot of opportunities to build. And in very, very early 2020, Benetrends moved to a much larger office that could accommodate about 120 cubicles and offices, and nobody to this day has moved in. We're on a 7-year
Wow.
contract. So it sits there. There's a couple people that go in here and there. We utilize it for events and meetings, but we have moved to a fully hybrid office, and we have people all across the country and a couple outside of the continental US now as well. So making that shift, I think there was always this thought of, well, one day we'll go back. Well, one day we'll go back. Well, it's okay if we hired 20 people outside. One day we'll go back. But that's really just not the nature of where we are in the world. And the full remote opportunity is working well for us. And we have a lot of new people who have come in that have been remote their whole lives. And
Yeah.
so I think just now, it's taken a long time, that really just this year in 2025, our team has been like, okay, this is for good. What are we going to do? Because everyone did a fantastic job in the early beginning days of, let's make martinis on a Friday together and get this cocktail kit, and let's take cooking classes and do this. But it, in my opinion, at least in my experience, that shot up and then rocketed to the floor. And so it takes somebody with, in my opinion, again, the energy and the drive and the willingness to be able to bring a team together and facilitate the necessary things you have to do, because culture looks very different from a remote to in-office to hybrid workspace. And so it's just recently something that we've begun to kick off here at Benetrends, and we're having a lot of fun doing it, because at the end of the day, it takes a lot of manpower to continue keeping
Yeah.
that energy up from a digital perspective, at least.
Yeah. It's it's not easy. And it's also crazy for me to think sometimes that there are people in the workforce that this is literally all they know. And maybe that sort of ages me a little bit. But
Yeah, yeah, it is. New people coming in. It's funny that I was like, "Wait, but didn't you have an office before it all happened?" And
yeah,
they didn't. Times are changing, and I think we're gonna see that more and more and more. So we
yeah.
have to get past the conversation of, "Well, we don't know what we're doing, and we were in person, and I missed the ice cream days." Yeah, okay, but the ice cream days are not coming back. So where are we going from here, and how, and it's either going to work for you or not.
Yeah.
We have employees leaving too because they want to go work in person and they need that human interaction. But for the most part, we have a little over 100 employees and it's working fantastic for us. And we just need little fun holiday events and culture opportunities and ways to meet each other, especially when we're bringing in new people and growing so often. It's hard to remember that there's these new people that have never had those interactions.
Yeah.
That's the biggest gap right now, is the ones that have never had interactions versus the one who remember the old days.
Who remember the old days. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this. Thinking of your own team, how do you help build that culture, support those employees from, let's say, different backgrounds and locations, and creating this inclusion and belonging with everybody? Help your team members feel, heard, seen. I'm curious, do you have specific examples of things that you've done and how those have worked out?
I have a really small team here. There's only four of us. We're a small but mighty marketing team. So there's only four of us total. And so when I think of how do we build culture and talk about backgrounds, for me, I picture bigger opportunities than just the day-to-day conversations. Especially when you have a small team, it's not as easy to be like, let's get us all on a call. Like, it's just kind of not necessary. And I think for me, I've got three gals on my team who all are very similar to me in the sense of they're very organized, they're very type A, we have very close relationships with each other. But for me, I think the biggest game changer is that even though we all have similarities, we have huge differences. And so I know on a Monday morning which of those girls I can call and get straight to work on. Hey,
Hmm.
I sent you something on Saturday. Sorry it was the weekend. Blah, blah, blah. The rest, it's like, tell me about the dog. How was the weather in your state on Saturday? And it takes a lot more time to engage in that. And I think as
Hmm.
leaders, we can do probably a better job at knowing how our people like to be approached, because that can be the biggest game changer in how your conversations and how you're set up for the whole week. So Mondays are a very important time to reset every week
Yeah.
on expectations and how we interact and how we check in on each other and what photos we share and how personal we get, because some people that couldn't matter at all, and in fact they don't want to tell you nothing about their personal life, and the other side, they almost can't function until they have it. So I
Yeah.
think knowing your team members on a personal level is all you need at the end of the day. Is we speak differently to everybody the same way you want to be approached differently by people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's insightful. I think that you have the luxury probably of doing that with a smaller team. But zooming out a bit, with a distributed team in a lot of places, with an organization that has 100 people, and you may need to interact with a lot more than them on some particular days, right? There's a lot of employers, I think, that find culture, this sort of inclusivity and belonging community, they're big challenges for them. Organization wide, have you seen that? Is that a challenge? Is that something you've seen at Benetrends, or even with some of the other organizations that you've worked for or even collaborated with, just based on their size or the distribution of their team members?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be willing to ask. And for us, again, I was the person that was like, let's have this Zoom call every quarter and do a trivia game and we'll give out Amazon gift cards. But I also had to get to a point where after a couple of years of doing that, I personally was starting to get burnout. And then I noticed for 2 quarters I didn't book one. And I had to be like, wait a minute, that's not fair to A, myself who created this, and B, to the rest of the company who we had 50 people show up on these trivia games or these activities that we were doing virtually. So I had to also put aside that I can be a little controlling and that can be a detriment, because I wanted to be able to do these but was lacking the time to do them. And so just recently we put out a survey. Do you want to be involved with what we're calling our vibe squad? And not
Vibe
only do you
squad.
want to be involved, but we also asked how much you want to be involved, because we found through our survey, which is really fantastic, a lovely woman who runs our IT team here named Danielle and I put this out. Danielle was one of the OGs from the company that ran the in-person group. So Danielle and I created our vibe squad, and we asked very specific questions. So we didn't want to deter somebody who was like, whoa, I can't do what Ali does. I can't do quarterly events that I am sending graphics and emails and surveys and PowerPoints and hosting and prizes. That is a lot for one person. And my energy level and like I can do that quicker than the normal person probably because I'm just like insane. But I think what we had to do is we had to get very granular. If you want to be involved, how much does that mean? And not necessarily how much does that mean on a minute basis per month, but do you want to be somebody that doesn't even get on the call? You just want to be what we called a rallier. Do you want to rally your
Hmm.
department or your friends or your people to participate? Do you want to be an organizer? That person is maybe not the host, but somebody that contributed to the planning of it. And then that honestly, we spread that out to like 6 to 8, I think, different options for people. And it's amazing because of the 16 people from our company who signed up to be part of the Vibe Squad, we had exactly 2 people in each of those categories. And I
Oh,
think that's a
wow.
really stark reminder to ask people and give them the opportunity to know how much they can physically, mentally, and emotionally contribute to supporting culture and staff and inclusion in a company. And so I just think with this distributed team you asked about, there are plenty of challenges, but if you give people the opportunity to be very specific in not only what they want, but how they want it, you're going to get way better results
Yeah.
than just raising hands and saying yes and no.
I love that you've named all of these all of these things. I love the Vibe Squad. I love the names for all the different responsibilities in there, which is it almost makes it more it just makes it more meaningful, more tangible. So we talked a little bit about this sort of multi-generational, well, we'll call it a gap. We talked briefly about it because there's a lot of young folks who don't know a different world than one that's hybrid, right? Or remote. And there's a world of folks that only knew that until recently. So when we talk about a lot of this culture or diversity in the workplace, there are things like race, gender, sexual orientation, all these things. The multi-generational workforce is a big part of that puzzle, in my opinion, as much as all those other things.
Mhm.
I'm just curious if having you know, all of these different generations right now at present, does it present some sort of unique challenges and opportunities when it comes to your culture specifically? So when you sent out that survey and you asked a whole bunch of people if they wanted to participate and do some of these things, did you find you were getting different answers based on some things like that? And if you're open to sharing, has it presented any challenges or opportunities, I guess, for you at Benetrends?
Yeah, I think I have 2 thoughts on it. The first is very similar to what I was just sharing, as I think the more you understand a multi-generational workforce, the more you also understand the how of how people want to
Yeah.
contribute and be involved. And so I think that was really important to us here when trying to come up with a way to build opportunities for all. Here's another great example. I don't even know what bucket this falls into, but we're having a steps challenge right now. And that's just how many steps are you taking a day?
Okay.
And you record it every Monday. Today was our first day recording it. And you have to send a picture of your steps, either from your watch, your Fitbit, your phone, or what have you. And in that, knowing that there is a wide array of age gaps and abilities on our team, before we launched that, we wanted to be so sensitive of everyone. Now,
That
first of
makes
all,
sense.
you don't have to sign up for it. So there's your first out of if you don't want to be part of this, don't be part of it. But that's never going to stop the complainers and the problems of, well, I want to do it, but you didn't take me into consideration. So I think by offering the opportunity to be in it is step one, but also the opportunity to win different prizes, not just for the most stepped person. Because I'll be honest, we submitted our steps today, and someone on the team took like 150,000 steps last week, and I was at like 19. So like I had a horrible week. Okay, I
Wow.
mean, but here's the thing about it: we are giving a prize to the most steps. That person will likely win because I cannot touch him, and I do not. He must be walking on a treadmill all 8 hours of the day. Like I don't understand it, and I am still having fun with this. Okay, but we also evaluated and worked together on what other kinds of awards we can give. Can we give a personal award for having the most growth? Did week 4 look better than your week 1?
I like
Yes,
that.
it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter how fit you are. It doesn't matter if you're taking 100 steps a day and you improve to 110. You're still recognized for change, for a healthy lifestyle, for participating. And so I think sometimes it's so simple like that. Is think about the others, and we don't always do that. My CEO says to me all the time, not everyone's Ali. Not everyone's Ali. Remember that. Not everyone's Ali. And Rocco is wonderful, a very big name in franchising, and he's a very wise man. And so I think about it all the time because I think as humans, we
Yeah.
do that naturally in most places of our life. We think, well, I took it this way, so didn't you? And
Yeah.
that comes across in conversations, in interactives, in interactions, in sports, in the way we talk to each other at work, the way we
Yeah.
type in email.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not everyone is Ali. And reflect on that yourself. Not everyone is Curtis. Not everyone is Ali. And as humans, we're going to take things and be presented with challenges differently. So I think the more open minded that we can give with some of those multi generational pieces of the puzzle, the more opportunity you have for people to feel included and like they were heard. And then if we didn't do it right on this steps challenge, guess what? We're going to do another one next
Yeah.
month, and we're going to make it better, and we're going to give more prizes, and we're going to include more people, and we're going to energize the heck out of it, because the 27 of us that did sign up for it on this first month are having a lot of fun together. And it's been really cool to see that I'm not judging my 19,000 steps last week compared to someone's
Yeah.
119, right? And so I think it's been a really good eye-opening glance at our first activity is working, because we took the time before launching it to try our very best to meet everybody's needs.
I have to tell you, like I feel I get a lot of energy from talking with you, and I feel like I'm about ready to run through a brick wall. I like it. I like it. I'm
I didn't know if I was going to like
I'm ready to break the huddle and go run for a touchdown right now. But you've kind of answered. I feel like one of the follow ups that I like to you know uh, approach after this is really kind of getting into some nitty gritty of things that can be done to bridge this generational gap, culture gap. I mean, all the gap of there's all of these things, right? And you talk about asking questions and just creating that dialogue, right? And finding different ways for folks to be included so that we can all participate in ways that make sense for us, where whatever life stage that we're in. And I think that that's incredibly important. And you also bring up another topic actually that I talk a lot about, and that's this recognition blind spot. And whether it's recognition or just communication blind spot, it's this concept that we tend to mirror our own tastes, preferences, behaviors, et cetera, with other people, right? The idea that, not everybody's Ali, not everybody's Curtis. And so making sure that while I might be comfortable going on walking X number of steps, the next person might not be ready, willing, or able to do that kind of thing. So setting that expectation might be unfair, right? Organization wide. And I think that that's a blind spot that a lot of leaders tend to have. And I think it's improving, right? I think things like that are getting a lot better, but it exists.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely.
Do you feel Tell me what your feelings are on a lot of the leaders that you work with, that you encounter, that you do business with. Do you feel like a lot of today's leaders understand a lot of these special challenges, whether it's multi-generational or a variety of different things to include people from all different, backgrounds? And do you think the understanding of this issue is possibly itself a generational challenge?
I do think it's a generational challenge. However, I think it's getting better because I think the generations coming in are not as much about the stereotypes of the past.
Yeah.
And so I think that I myself have struggled with feeling part of a stereotype, whether that be, and I don't always open up about this, Curtis, because it's very personal, but I'm challenging myself to do so because I am not so much young anymore because I just entered my late 30s. But I was somebody young in the workforce, moving through franchising. I am blonde, and that's a stereotype. I am a former cheerleader. Unfortunately for the sport, that's a stereotype. And so it's challenging to overcome and not succumb to stereotypes or the norms or the assumptions about who you are based on how you look, how you act, how old you are, what your past is. And so I think that the new generation is recognizing that stereotypes are not everything anymore, and they used to be a lot more difficult. Like, we look around the room with the women's franchise committee at how many women are in the room now at franchise events, and for me it feels very normal now to have women and wonderful women in leadership all around me at events. But if you flash back 10, 20 years ago, there was maybe one woman in the room. And I hear this all the time from the founders of the WFC. And it is hard to picture a time like that because at the generation I'm in right now, I see women. Can it be better? Absolutely. We are always supporting and creating initiatives to amplify women's voices in franchising. But I can't even relate to the way it used to be because I wasn't around. I wasn't around when there was no women in the world. And so that's one example of how I think bringing in younger generations are helping support culture, and leaders are starting to recognize that there are differences, and while there are challenges, having really tough conversations about stereotypes and being willing to hear somebody, in my opinion, is one of the hardest hurdles to overcome, because you can get somebody like me who doesn't want to share that I was a cheerleader because I'm too afraid of what somebody might think of me. But now I'm at a place where I can talk about cheerleading as a sport and give statistics on the NFL, and talk about how many men are now cheering in the NFL and how times have changed and the level of athleticism that is coming through not only the NFL but collegiate pom and cheer teams and dance teams now. And so this passion, though, took a long time for me to get to, and it was about something I love. So if it's also something about who we are, the family or the culture we were born into, you can't control that. So overcoming so many of those personal thoughts and opinions about it can be very difficult for someone. So I think as leaders, it's our job to be comfy and
Yeah.
find opportunities to praise and find value and find energy and love in the differences across our teams, because in the end it makes our companies better. It's bringing different perspectives and different experiences, and so it's very difficult, but I think it's getting a lot better because I think open-mindedness is so much more valued, personally in our culture, but also professionally now.
I would agree with that. And kind of leads me into this next question of, okay, so, I think that we can agree, right? Boils down to meeting people where they're at, right? Understanding that everybody's unique, right? We all have a particular set of wants, needs, motivators, et cetera. Um, I know that that can make a lot of business leaders nervous, a lot embrace it, but do you feel there's a way to do this in a way that's scalable and manageable? What does that look like when the organization grows to an enormous size? How do we scale that kind of culture?
Yeah, I've never worked for an enormous organization. However, I think the biggest change I've seen at Benetrends lately is putting more trust and opportunity into those beneath you too. I think that it's not just your C-suite, it's your next level leaders, it's the next level leaders below that. And I think there's this older view of the org chart, and it's just the people up top. But if we're doing that, we are limiting the number of brains we have to go into the needed attention that workplace culture has. And it's not just the responsibility of your HR team. Similarly, it's not just the responsibility of your C-suite. So I think utilizing people below you and encouraging growth among your own teams allows other people to feel valued and like they have a voice. And it's the only way to scale, whether you
Yeah.
have thousands at your company or 50. It's the same way I learned I can't host trivia every quarter on my own. It's a silly example of there are 15 other people from different teams from my team who are taking leadership and feeling important with something that at the end of the day doesn't affect your business in that sense. Like, we have to recognize that too, is you might have people on teams that aren't the right fit for the next leader position when it comes from to the point of a new job title or a promotion. But if you can include people on something fun like activities and culture building opportunities, then that's still leadership, and it's still cultivating this team feeling of growth. And everybody wants to feel like they are growing and contributing to something. And at the end of the day, it's how you scale it, because there's so many more people you can tap into to support whatever initiatives you're focusing on.
So I know we have a couple of minutes left here, and I'm gonna squeeze a whole bunch of questions here in one with a quick shameless plug. Mustard Hub is a solution for engagement and personalization. Of this culture building, right? And aside from Mustard Hub and solutions like ours, I'm just kind of curious what tools what technological tools, do you guys use, or would you want to use when it comes to building community and supporting those people? And then I would kind of follow that up because I'm curious if you see a role for AI and technology playing, if you see it playing a role in the future of work overall.
Yeah, we're doing nothing like Mustard Hub does in plainest terms. I mean, I'm literally still thinking of like the sticker tablet I'm giving my daughter for having good days at kindergarten this year, and trying to figure out the technological answer to that with our teams and encouraging teams. And obviously sales teams have bonuses and sales quotas and that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, the only thing we use is our chat and a ton of gifs. So I think there's a huge opportunity for
Okay,
both AI and technology to
cool.
contribute to something that's still lacking for online companies that don't have rewards charts like my daughter's kindergarten classroom, and don't have the old school whiteboard of watching growth. And I had a CEO once that used to use a Sharpie marker on all the glass windows of the office, and you always knew where everyone was
Yeah.
because he'd write it on your glass window. And so there's a huge opportunity, Curtis. And I know that us here, myself and others at Benetrends, are so excited for what you're building, what Mustard Hub is doing, because there's a massive gap.
Awesome. Before I let you go, just quickly, what advice would you have for any up and coming leaders? What would be the single most important thing you could tell them about what they could do better as a leader when it comes to the people that they work with, right? You're in an elevator, you're almost at the top floor before they walk right out the door. What do you tell them?
So, in my experience, flashing back to when I was a teacher, anyone who has children knows that there's a ton of professional development days where there are 3 hour early dismissals and day off for teachers. Those days, teachers are forced to be professionally developed in whatever way their school, county, state requires them to be. So when I went into the world of franchising, I had this whoa moment of, why is nobody telling me what to learn? And
Mm,
I think it's very sad that outside of being a teacher, nobody is there to support your own personal growth as a leader. So, my advice, knowing both sides of that now, is that you have to do that on your own. You have to be logging on to webinars and listening to podcasts. I personally am not a big reader, but webinars and podcasts and opportunities to learn and be credentialed in new technologies and get all of the little certification stamps on my LinkedIn, those are empowering and exciting to me, because they are opportunities to learn, and no one's going to do it for me. So while I have to do it for myself, I find every opportunity online for my marketing team, and I send them, and I don't even care if they do them. I just want to help give them the
yeah.
opportunity, because it is wildly difficult to find ways to get better as leaders with
Yeah.
nobody telling you.
It's 100% true. I mean, this was a really wonderful, really insightful conversation, Ali. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, go jump through that brick wall now. Let's go.
Big thanks to all of you tuning in to Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. Please like and share this episode. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Visit mustardhub.com to learn how we can help companies become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. And while you're there, Be sure to sign up and get started with Mustard Hub for free. Thanks, everyone.